Wish you were one of those influencers with raving fans who binge on your every word, consume all your content, buy everything you have to sell, and demand even more? Then stay tuned while Authority Magazine columnist and BuzzFeed contributor Tracy Hazzard shares strategies, tips, and tactics from top videocasters, podcasters, authors, and social influencers on creating that bingeable factor. Now, let's join Tracy as she explores how to rise above all the digital noise with the binge factor.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Binge Factor. I'm Tracy Hazzard and I have Francois Lupien today, and we had so much fun getting to know each other. How to become more. Love that. One of my favorite things is when I find a guest for my show who has matched energy. And I think Francois and I, if we lived next door, we'd probably drive each other crazy. We'd be such good friends, right? So when we can do that across the distance, across the microphone, it's completely fun. And I can tell you that I cannot wait to be on his show. And we do some more things in the future when you have something that's so well matched with passion and energy and excitement and brain share, mind share, if you want to call it that, whatever it is. I love that type of model, and that's what I'm bringing you here today. So Francois Lupien is a dynamic coach, mentor, and speaker whose experiences include successfully working with Tony Robbins, Stephen Covey, and Bob Proctor. Achieving excellence in everything he puts his mind to, Francois has been a Taekwondo Canadian champion, a top real estate agent for 11 years with RE/MAX, and a serial entrepreneur with multiple successful six-figure businesses. His podcast, How to Become More, is just fascinatingly fun, high energy, everything that you would want in a show. So you're going to want to check that out. But let's hear more from Francois about why he's doing what he's doing, how he does it, and how he wants you to become more. Francois, thank you for being here. And I'm excited to talk about how to become more, because what we like to do is become more bingeable, right? So that's a strategy here, how to become more. I love that title for your podcast. I know you've made some shifts in it, but was that the name from the beginning?
Yes, absolutely. This is something that we emphasize, that people need to become more. I'll go into something interesting, is that I believe that too many people tiptoe through life, not wanting to make waves. I'm saying we have to stop this. And the best way to do this is for us to become more. Outside circumstances will always be there, but we determine what happens with it. So how to become more is really the essence of what we do. And so, yes, from
how to live up to our full potential, right?
Absolutely.
I think that you're really right. And from listening to your show, that I see that coming across, that you're really highlighting when someone is, you call it shining a light on them. But when someone is like magnifying some part of what they do and they're living that to the fullest, you highlight that. You're really demonstrating when they're living more.
Interesting. I appreciate you noticing that on my podcast, because when I'm with some guests, I always tell them, you often will bring out nuggets of information that for you are like a Monday morning, but for the audience, it's not. So I raise my hand because I politely want to give you a cue that I want to expand on this and make, as you said, the light shine more on that experience that you just shared with the viewers, so that they too can be enlightened and take advantage of these, as I said, nuggets that the people have dropped in, that for them, since they do it every day, they feel it's like a Monday morning, but it's not to most people. So I like to make that light shine in there. Absolutely. Yes, you picked up on that. Good.
Well, I think this is my job, is to highlight your bingeable aspects, right? What is making your show more bingeable than someone else's, right? What's the more in your show? And that's really it, that when you highlight those things that people take for granted, but that they're extremely great at, they don't realize it. When you highlight that, not only are you shining a light on them, which really helps with their goals for coming on your show of wanting to be promoted and wanting to share that, but it really helps your audience, because they don't always know that might be that tip that they just gave on marketing, because I might not be great at marketing, and they might not understand that. So by you highlighting that, you're really helping your audience guide through that as well.
Absolutely. No, it's very interesting the way that you have dissected what I do with my show. It's something that I instinctively do. And most people, if not 100% of the people that come on the show, are heart-centered and service-driven. And this is the way that I feel, and I want to share from that angle as well when I speak to people. Making other people shine is one of the best things I love to do in life, and the How to Become More podcast show helps to do that.
Well, right. I mean, I think that this is, having a outward focus to your guests and to your audience is a heart-centered model for podcasting in general. I mean, it's a giving model.
Cool. Actually, that model illustrates from, I see life as a wood stove. And you look at the wood stove and it says, give me heat. And the wood stove looks at you and says, no. Give me wood and I'll give you as much heat as you want. Therefore, I see my podcast of my way of putting wood in the fire so that it could light up and empower my guests so that their business can take off and they can continue to empower others through the skills that they have developed.
So you say something in your description for the show, and so I feel like this is purposeful because you don't have a really long description. So you're impactful with what you say. And my favorite part of what you say here is you say, get real and practical insights from top entrepreneurs and influencers. Go beyond theory to make a measurable impact today. And I think that that's so often that there are a lot of podcast shows that are kind of either in that like all tips or all theory. And there's a nice blend of both in what you do. Is that sort of your just way of doing business in general, and that's coming across here? Or was that a purposeful choice for the podcast itself as different from the rest of your business?
Both, but to emphasize on the podcast, what I like to talk about is mainly that when people come into the show, I ask them, what prompted you to become an entrepreneur? What do you like best? What's your passion about being an entrepreneur? And so then I go into some vulnerability and I ask them, is there anything that happened that almost wanted to make you quit?
That's a great question.
And the reason I ask that is twofold. Number one, I know that they didn't quit because I'm interviewing them. And number two, they've overcome something that is could have been life-changing if they would have stopped. They wouldn't have continued. But also all entrepreneurs, you, myself, and everybody else listening here right now, if we ask them, how's business going? We all go, great. But in reality, we know that we are pushing hard, getting extra hours, doing the extra mile that most people don't know. A lot of things behind the scene. And sometimes we feel guilty saying, am I doing it right? Is this the right thing to do? So when I have my guests and I make them expose this, everybody realizes, I'm not the only one that puts the extra hours and struggles. And sometimes I want to quit, but I hang in there. And when they see that the guest has overcome this, then I ask them, so what would be, when they tell how they have overcome that, I says, now share what would you tell people that are facing struggles? And now it becomes a genuine experience that they say, I say this because I overcame this and now I'm changing lives still. So it makes it really, really, lively or 100% alive. It's the truth. It's raw truth, if I may say.
Authentic, we say a lot in podcasting, like that's a term that's turned out, but I like that alive. I like that because that makes more sense to me because it's fluid, right? It's moving, it's growing, which is a little bit different than authentic. Like authentic could be like authentic seal of approval on something, and it's static. This isn't static, what you're building, what you're really, it might be different answer today than it will be tomorrow when you ask them again.
Absolutely. Also, the nice part about that portion that I do is I make my guests vulnerable. And by doing that, it increases their likeness of the crowd. People say, oh, he or she is human, approachable. And so now they can relate to them way more. And so then after I says, what is it that you're doing? What's the next thing on your list? And what's the legacy that you'd like to leave? And what tips can you have to entrepreneurs that are coming up? So I'm making it a package that makes them shine by making them true and by making them vulnerable, but also triumphant because they have succeeded. And so that is always someone that I know a long time ago says, everybody is looking for a star to hold on to or a hat where you can hang your hat. And it's someone that is true, authentic, someone that has some faults, and it's okay to have them, but he overcomes them. Overcoming, and how do we overcome? By becoming more. So
right. We don't want to, we don't want to work with perfect people. Like it feels daunting. And I'd say that's probably less likely for someone to decide to make you their coach when they think you're too perfect, right? It's a red flag.
It is interesting.
Yeah. So you studied with some great people. Now, I know that you've done a tribute in your YouTube channel to Bob Proctor, who, passed away this past year. And, one of the people that I enjoyed meeting the most out of all of the, people I've talked to or been on stages with. Bob Proctor's just got an amazing life, an amazing story, and he's got amazing stuff that came out of his mouth every time he turned around. So I know that you respect that. Tony Robbins, Stephen Covey. I mean, so these are some big hitters, and it becomes really difficult for, I think, the new generation, and from those of us who've been around a long time, though, to not lose sight of the power of what they have, but also figure out how to apply that. And that's what I think you're seeking as a coach, really, is application of these things.
And you're touching on my golden thing. As I says that and right now, for those who are not seeing, I'm raising one hand and I'm saying information, and then I'm raising the other hand. To create transformation needs, and I'm pointing to my head, needs integration. And that integration needs through application, through repetition, and through feelings. So your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions are going to make the information that you actually integrate, create the transformation that you look for. And as we do this with guidance and repetition, the transformation will stick. And that's what I'm all about.
Right. And I also think that what I hear is a theme throughout the show as you talk about it is that this, I'm going to call it edging of more. Like we don't have to be fully optimized and perfect in our podcast here, right? And you're what I loved about it is that we've talked multiple times because there was a technical problem with your show. And what I loved about it, and it would have been too easy for me to say, oh no, Francois hasn't got his act together. Like there's something wrong here and I'm not going to have him on my show. Instead, you were so coachable, you fixed it. And then you sent me an email with some other things and references and just, that to me is the sign of someone I want to have on my show, because they're looking at how am I continuously becoming more? And that's really what you're diving in and looking for. So what are some ways that you're looking for improving and becoming more with it as a podcast host?
Feedback from the people I talk to. I think that one of my mottos, the day you think you know it all is the day you start to fall. And so,
so
therefore, I study personally for myself an hour to 2 hours each and every day in order for me to get better. I hire high-level coaches, and then whatever they give me, I dilute and I give back to my audience as well. That's how I can stay current with the things that are working and make a difference. Because as I said, the day you think you know it all is the day you start to fall. So we need to constantly grow. And right back at you, Tracy, you say that, there were some flaws, but you notice them and you're big enough to say, hey, there's something that is wrong. That means that you are a professional in your industry and you want everybody else to shine around you. So you have the guts to actually say it. And then, okay, I'm happy that I was able to handle it. But also just before this show, you talked to me about my mic, the positioning. You are always looking for the edge. You're always looking to make things become better. You're actually living the how to become more yourself. And that's why I believe that we connected so well.
I do too. And I think that this is the thing is, look, I just said this because I just got off a coaching call for my entire community. So we run a live coaching call every single week for everyone who works with us in some capacity. And every guest who's ever been on the Binge Factor is invited in to sit in on them as well. So so you'll have that invite. But the reality is it's very small percentage of people take advantage of it. And yet, if I run the analytics on that, I understand that those people that show up there, they may not implement every piece of advice. And I wouldn't want them to. I want them to filter it through their own needs, their own capabilities, their own ways of doing it. But if they implement 10% of what I suggest to them. Like, you just made this microphone change, but from now on, every single episode that you do, you're going to have a compounding effect of better sound. Who knows what that's going to lead you to? It might have a high growth curve for you. So what we see clearly is someone who participates in coaching in trying to improve themselves and become more is a growth strategy that is magnified.
Absolutely. And talk about growth strategy that magnifies. I have one-on-one coaching. I have group coaching. And one of the things that I realized with my group coaching, which goes fantastic, is I've started to implement a laser coaching 15-minute one-on-one. They decide if they want to have it. All my clients.
So they decide when they want to have it too.
Yes. And so they have a link to my calendar when they can plug in that 15-minute per week. The only caveat that I have with this is that when they connect with this and we talk for 15 minutes, if there's implementation that I tell them to do, they must implement before they book their next one. So people just don't become dependent on me. I don't believe in codependency in this. No way.
Ugh, I so agree with that one. Yeah.
But one thing is, as you mentioned, is how we grow is that when I did this, all my clients that take advantage of the one-on-one, their results went exponential, because they are taking the time to find out and tweak their things. And I'm taking the times to help them do so as well. And so by that implementation of the group, the reason I like group is because more people can bring in more thoughts into your world that you're not seeing. We see with our eyes going forward. We don't see in the back of our heads. Others do. So if we get their information, their input, it's going to help us. So that environment of having something that is very conducive, like I said, heart-centered, service-driven people is fantastic. But having also that one-on-one touch, I called it my hybrid coaching now. Woof, it has transformed it. So I too always look to become more.
I love that. I love that model because you're really providing an opportunity for you to access all this great information. Like, I mean, I think it's a classic story in the entrepreneurial world where, like, you know, you come in and you just say, I need months to study your business and study it, but I'm going to give you 15 minutes of like the exact things you should do. And here's your prescription, right? But if you spend that time to study it, you know what to access and what to give them. You know what's going to make the effect. But it's really hard in a group coaching environment to not pick something out of sequence for them.
Although I'm pretty good at that.
We try, yeah. We try, right? We try to keep in sequence with them, but It's hard. If they're not participating, it's really difficult, right? That's why you have to get to a higher participation level. So you live stream. And that means that
before we go to live stream, may I make a little something that's pretty cool? When you talked about how to become more, and I said that getting the vulnerability of the person that is a guest, one of the things that I'm doing with this, and I highlight it, is that we do not need to be perfect. All entrepreneurs sometimes are their worst enemy, saying, oh, I'm not going to do this one because it's not perfect yet. And so they stop themselves and they're their worst enemies. So by coming to the show and seeing that they don't need to be perfect, they're actually saying, hey, I'm giving them permission not to be perfect, to go out there. And my safety valve on this is the following. Since all my followers are heart-centered and service-driven, you're not doing anything to hurt people that you come in contact with. Therefore, as you're heart-centered, people will forgive you if you make a mistake. And they'll relate with you even more. So I wanted to touch base on this because I think it's one of the important part of the show. So many people want to be perfect before they do anything. Don't stop it and let it go. Let it flow.
Well, and you know, I think this is really an interesting thing that I have heard, and I just actually had this conversation with another guest on my show from yesterday that I was interviewing. So he may or may not air after or before your episode. Like there's always a scheduling. So, but DP Newton was on my show, and I love DP because he was saying that like you earn the right as the podcast host, and his show is called The Nonfiction Brand, that you earn the right as a podcast host of giving over time because you're giving with your heart, you're giving with your content. It's free to who is ever listening, that they are less likely to jump on you for making a politically incorrect move than they are to say, hey, that didn't land that well with me. I know your heart is in the right place, but you might want to reconsider how you say that in the future. They might be willing to like nudge you and do it nicer than send you hate mail, right? And nasty messages. Where on Twitter, like it gets fed all wrong all the time because the intention of that, the good intention's buried in the system of it. In podcasting, the good intention is coming across, or they wouldn't stick around and listen to your show.
Interesting. I'm a Canadian gold medal champion in Taekwondo. And so in order to achieve this, I went to heavy duty masters, and the last one was a ninth Dan, like extra master, grandmaster Lee was his name. And so when they come to you and they correct you on your growth, you don't go, oh, well, I thought it was good. You be quiet and you listen in. And what I did is when he'd come to me and says, hey, this kick is no good. So I would go practice 100 times and I would come back and say, is this better, sir? And he says, getting better, but do this. I, as an individual, have grown by going and taking it humbly. Humble yourself. Because you see, my glass here is not full. But if it's full and you try to pour something in it, it's going to overflow. But if I empty it, then there's room for you to pour more in. Therefore, humility enables us to give room for more information. And I try to really give this to all my clients to say that let's learn together. It's okay if we're not doing it perfect. How can we improve? Tony Robbins called it CANI, C-A-N-I, constant and never-ending improvement. Do this every day. And a small incremental improvement daily will change your life in a year. Amazingly. Yes.
Absolutely. And, you said you're a big researcher and that you do a lot of, reading and a lot of input. And I think that that's also a key to just conditioning yourself to be a continual learner.
Yes, absolutely. And I love it. Interestingly enough,
I do too. I think that's why we're enjoying each other so much, Francois.
I hated learning in school. I hated it. And then even my mom, who's 91 now, still alive, and I talk to her every day, and I tell her, she goes, you're studying all the time. You used to hate studying. Yeah, but now I'm doing what I love. And so I can't get enough of it. And then sharing it with others enables it to be integrated more. Other thing that I teach people, the more you talk about what you do, the more you help others, but the more you integrate it. And then you can say, next time I can tweak it this way or that way and have more impact on the next time that you actually deliver that information.
Yeah, I had to build into my model a way. So as you know, because of how we communicated early on, is that I purposefully listen to your show, watch your videos, check things out about you, because not just because, I want to do a better job interviewing you. I do want to do that, but that's not its purpose. Its purpose is also for me to be able to learn something and build research into my process so that it is a practice part of my week. Right? It's a part of my job. It's a part of the way things happen. And some people look at that as work, but I don't. I think it's the fun part. It does translate into a better result. So yeah, it's work there, but I just don't think of it like work. I think of it as like improve, it's my fun time to research and learn.
Because you're a true professional. That's what.
Thank you.
That's exactly what it is. Because when we're doing what we enjoy, it's no longer work. We're having fun. You never work a day of your life when you're doing what you love, and you're learning from it. So it's just this aspect of change your thoughts, change your life is one of the things that I talk a lot about. If you're looking at something and says, I have to do this before I see like this emotional state is going to drive a behavior that is not going to be conducive to success. You're going to be drained and not like it. Who decides this? You do. You decide how you address something. Says, instead of saying, I have to, says, I get to do this. I get to learn more today. Isn't that more empowering? And then you're a nicer person to be around, if I may say. If you're smiling.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because so you started this podcast with another host, and then that fell apart and you decided to take it over. So I'm assuming you fell in love with something about podcasting that you really wanted to continue. What was it?
This is, I'm going to throw a curve at you on this one. I'm like a dog on a bone. If you give me, I'm not letting go. And so so you
didn't want to let go of the show.
No, that's it. He gave me something and says, I don't think that it's going to work for what I'm doing right now. His career was moving, and which is fine. And then I said, no, I'm continuing. He goes, really? I says, yeah. He says, what are you going to? I says, don't worry about it. I'll figure it out. because I felt that for the few people that we talked to, it was making a change in their lives. And I like that, even though it's something that is
so
not.
You liked the results and the feedback that was happening.
Yes. I think that in life, when you add value, you can get money, but you can get psychic money. And I'll explain what psychic money is it's not monetary things, but it's a good feeling. Something that when you go to bed at night, you have a smile on your face. You feel good when I get text messages from my client says, that thing you told me changed my life. Woo! I'm so happy when that happens. It just turns me on and gives me more fuel to want to share more. Again, this is not monetary rewards, but it's one that cannot be quantified in dollars, and you cannot give a price to it either. It's priceless. And I love that. I thrive on this. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it really shows. So, one of the questions I ask here really, really frequently is, what is the return on investment? And what you're putting in is the intangible return on investment. So there's not money directly involved in that, but there is, because if a client is highly satisfied, they're referring somebody else, and that, or they're working with you even longer. So there is a financial return to that, but you're right. It's like this psychic return. And I love that you put it that way.
It's a secondary thing. Money is a secondary thing. And if people are chasing money, you're chasing the wrong thing. Chase adding value to people. Chase that and become better, become more, so that people will want to have more from you. And then the money will take care of itself. You have to worry about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the guests that you have on your show, because I think that's, we met through Podmatch and that's been becoming a real common theme right now for us here. But how are you trying to decide, am I going to have this person on my show or not? Are you making a criteria list for yourself, or is this just an energy feel? What's working for you on that side?
Thank you for asking. When I first started, it was, hey, you want to be on my show? Let's go. And
I think that's the case for a lot of people.
and then I got, maybe the quality of this interview was not what I want to deliver to my tribe. So I says, what mechanism can I put in place in order to stop this from happening? Therefore, on my podcast page, it says, become a guest. There's a button. And when you click on that, what it does is it sets an appointment before the show with me. And I have 10 or 15 questions that I ask the people, and I will research them, find out about their social media, where they're at, what's going on, their website, and different questions that I ask. Then I review this information. We have the conversation, and then I can ascertain if it will be a good fit for the tribe to get information from this individual. So the long answer to the short answer is that at first I was, okay, who wants to be? And now I have some steps that people need to take so I can maintain the high quality of delivering the messages that I have on my podcast for my tribe.
So, you know what? You've learned that earlier than a lot of other podcasters. And this is actually just the coaching call that I did just before this, is that I really wish podcasters would become more discerning about their guest choices earlier in the model. When we're trying to just get to 25 episodes, we need to take what we can get to make sure that the show, so that we get comfortable, right? Like we're still testing. But after that point is really when it tips. But most people don't figure that out till 100 to 200 episodes in before they realize, wow, maybe I should have been more selective about my podcast guests. So you're figuring it out sooner, and you're shifting it at a great time where I think it's going to have the most impact. And that's what I just told my clients, is that from 25 to 100 episodes is where you'll see the most growth in the listenership of your show. So if you make a change at that stage, that will have a bigger, as you talk about it, exponential return. So your choices here are really smart, Francois.
Well,
and I look forward to seeing how that's really going to affect the growth change for you, because the alignment is really critically important, right? I wouldn't have you on the show if I didn't think there was alignment. Now, I don't have to have a call with you. I can tell by checking out your feed, your show, and then making, and I, of course, have a form that you filled out as well. But so it gives me all the tools for me to make my decision, because I have indicators already.
Yes.
But I think when you're a coach, and I'm not only a coach, so that's like my role is in a different place. I'm running a large corporation that's technology based, so it's a little bit different. But when you're a coach, it's your integrity that's on the line.
Absolutely.
And so you really have to make that work.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also I'm what you call, I'm a good boy. And I'm very loyal. So when someone gets into my world, I'm very loyal to them. So when people get into my tribe, I'm loyal to them. And I want to raise the bar for them all the time, not just for, like you say, I'm a coach. At first, you take anybody. Now, I don't take anybody. And if I feel that their vibe is not going to be conducive to the rest, I say no. Even if, well, I got the money. It's not about the money. It's bigger than that. And that's when
so true.
That's when things starts to change. I say that money is like a little bird. If you chase it, you'll never catch it. But if you set some good food that it wants, it'll come. So make sure that you dress up the plate so that the bird wants to come. And this takes effort from self. And you have to be selfless, not selfish, in order to continue to serve the people so that they want to come. Because they feel it's not about you, it's about them. And this is something that I've been studying this stuff for 43 years. And as I said, the day you think you know it all is the day you start to fall. But I'm learning that nature has got such great teaching lessons that weeds grow fast and they die fast. The oak tree takes a long time, but it's solid and will be there forever. And so which one you want to be? It's a decision. I decide to be an oak tree. And I want my people to be oak trees as well. And then I'll say something that's pretty cool. It's a long time I haven't said this. I like when you go down a road and there's trees on either side, and then the trees touch at the top of the road. And so
it's always beautiful. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Now check this out. What I'm saying is that at first the trees are looking at one another saying, oh, look at this big one on the other side. And so they're separate, but they're giving themselves place to grow. So that as they grow, they'll be able to connect later on. So patience has got something that's amazing. If they're too close together, they might die. But by giving space one for another, they're able to become beautiful and even connect later on. That's one thing I want. That's why how to become more is so important. You become more so you can be that tree on the side that's really big, and then you're going to touch others on the other side as well.
That's what I'm excited to see for you as you continue forward on your podcast, is to see what you do with that network of guests and your clients and how that builds into a beautiful community. Because I have to say, I think you're on the way to that. And that's really, I look forward to seeing that for you. Now, we briefly touched on it, and my listeners would be like, Tracy, you said live stream and then nothing, you didn't go follow down that road. So I do want to say this. So have you always been live streaming this, or is that a sort of newer model?
Always live streamed it. Always. And sometimes for all you listeners that want to have a live stream, let me tell you, you'd better have some material that's ready on the side, because sometimes life happens and people can't show up. So you got to step up to the plate and not just wing things, because once again, you need to come as a servant, a real servant. So you need to have proper material to help the people. And sometimes it does that. And sometimes it does that twice in a row. But I keep on going.
You had to do a solo show. That's your most recent one that just published as we're recording this was a solo show. It was a great show on gratefulness. And, and honestly, I don't think that if I hadn't have already listened to your show, it still would have been a great entry point into you and into the show, How to Become More. So I don't think but you did reveal that. You said, hey, this happens, right? That's why we're doing this live, right? But I think that also forces something that you're eager to get out, which is that sort of that dynamic aliveness you were talking about and that authenticity. The guest has nowhere to go but there, because it's live. Like they can't second guess all of that.
And in order to ease the pill, if you might say, of the guest, I make them fill out questions beforehand. Why? Because when it's in our head, it's all over the place. When we take it from our head, we put it on paper or we write it down, then it's out of our head, and now we can deal with it because now it's in front of us. So I give them that safety net of expressing themselves first. And then when we're talking, I have two screens and I see their answers. So if there's something that happens, I have a safety net for them. Oh, do you mean this? If I ask a question, their last says, how about you tell me it this way? And so, oh, yes. And now they get back into it. So I'm very best dad ever. I have 6 kids, 6 of them.
That's right. I was going to mention that.
And all of them were riding a bicycle, two wheels, before they were 4 years old. All of them.
Wow.
So what I do is I coach and I help them and I encourage them and I'm there and I'm running it back and I'm making it happen. And so people says, that can't be. And all my kids says, yeah, well, we did it. And because I care about the people. And actually, it was the first one at 3 years old. And it says, hey, the other one, they just all before 4 years
because they wanted to beat the oldest, right?
yeah, exactly. And then, so we have a very
little competition there that played against it and in your favor as a dad. I love it. But you know what? You're right, because the skills are there. They have the balance capability, but they don't necessarily have the confidence.
Exactly. And the practice and the belief. That's one of the things I like about coaching so much is that at first people don't believe in themselves. So I tell them, borrow my belief in you because I know that you can do it. I know it. And if you're falling, I'll catch you and I'll put some posts in order for you to hold on so you can straighten yourself out. But it's you that's going to develop the strength. I like to say that no one can do your push-ups for you. You can't pay someone. You can't pay someone to do them. But once you do the push-ups, they're yours and the strength is yours and no one will take that away. That's one of the approaches that I have when I coach is to help the people. It says, I'll give you the stamina, the strength necessary to overcome and make things better. May I show you?
Please. So for those of you listening, you might want to check out the video.
Okay, right now what I'm doing is I got 2 plastic pots. One is half the size of the other. And I tell people, if you're making $100,000 a year, which is the small one, and you want to make $200,000 a year, you go and buy this course that tells you about $200,000 a year. So you buy the course, and then the course starts to pour its knowledge in you. So what's happening? It's twice the size of you. It's going to overflow. And then a lot of people says, it's the fault of the course. The course is not good. And I says, cancel. This is not the scoop. The reason is you're too small. So what I do, let's work together and get you to become bigger. And as you become more, then you can have more stuff poured into you and you can handle it and you can hold it. This is so powerful of people blaming the outside circumstance of, oh, I tried Tracy's thing, it didn't work. Well, actually, did you implement? If she told you to change mic, did you click the button and change mic? No, I didn't. And now you're not getting the results that you want? Well, it's not her, it's you. So this is sometimes responsibility is a big thing. I had to learn this lesson in my life in a big way to become responsible and own it. And when I did that, my growth became exponential. And I teach that to everybody I come in contact with. The more you say, okay, I'm responsible for this. I created this. And you can do something about it. If you say it's someone else, you are empowering them and disempowering you. Stop it. Empower yourself by disempowering them, meaning don't blame them, take the responsibility, and then do something about it. If you don't know how, good way, you ask Tracy. Tracy, how can I do this better?
I love that. I love that, Francois. That is so good. And,
it's true.
Yeah. And, one of my favorite things about what you just said there is that really at the end of the day, no one can record this show for you. Only you can. Only you can bring that through to your audience. Only you can bring through and show and demonstrate what you are being and how you're showing up in the world. That's one of my favorite parts about podcasting is getting to see that insight into it. And I think what I see in your podcast, Francois, and how to become more is really how you are more.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That's awesome. Thank you.
Well, we're going to end right here, but I want everyone to check out your show and really take a listen and think about who you are being right now. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Francois and I not only had a lot of fun doing this, we had a couple of technical glitches along the way that I don't always mention that. But one of the things about Francois that I knew was going to make us so well matched is that he not only says he wants to become more, has the active mindset to become more. He's openly coachable. He's interested in finding out what's wrong, with things and how he can do things differently or better. And it may not always apply. It may be something where he's going to say, you know what? I have lots of other experiences here, and I don't think that that one resonates with me. But he's open to listening. And too many entrepreneurs are completely closed off with input. They're completely uncoachable, or they're overly influenced by their coach, meaning that whatever their coach says they do, even when they don't really understand it. So they don't push up against that and bring themselves to the table. And those two things, not being coachable or being too manipulated as a coachable client, can be extremely difficult and ways that which you're just not going to grow enough through either model. So I love that he lives, eats, breathes what he's doing. And it's just fascinating to me that how he's built his show, what he's done, how he just dives into everything that he does. And as I mentioned early on, his energy is just off the chart and everything he does is so from the heart. So I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I did, and I hope you'll stick with us and hear some more great bingeable podcasters as we go forward. And don't forget to reach out. Go to the blog post for this episode. Find all the ways you can link to Francois and become more with your show. And tune in to us next week as I bring you another podcaster who's got a successful show or someone who you could really learn from right here on The Binge Factor.
You've been listening to the Binge Factor podcast. For more information on podcasting and videocasting success tips and tactics, please go to thebingefactor.com. And be sure to listen to our other show for podcasters called Feed Your Brand. If you'd like to be interviewed on this show, as well as featured in Tracy's column, please go to thebingefactor.com/guest and apply.